fallout, smoke, women crying for their sons because their sons are not, Romans killing riotous groups that are rising up. Free Judea, free our people, autonomy for Israel. You had Herod, an Edomite, and his dynasty. Herod's ruling, killing any potential threat, any potential Messiah. Then you had the Pharisees and the Sadducees, that we learn from Josephus are not Jews by birth. No.
Brothers and sisters, they are there. We are not lost. We are scattered. We are original Hebrew.
Let's go! All praises be to the Most High God. Yeah, I say it.
I was opportune to meet my grandparents, whom from childhood had always made us to understand that we are one of the lost tribes of Israel. Okay. So from my grandmother.
Right. Now look at these. Yeah, I'm telling you, I gotta show y'all. A picture speaks 1,000 words. Just look for yourself. And this is the creme de la creme. All praises be to the Most High, y'all. Everything we've been through, y'all, the Most High is going to retribute it on all the nations that have had a hand in the oppression of his apple, the apple of his eye, his chosen people, his beloved, his fervent lover, his only begotten. They're going to have their part in the lake of fire. You see them tormented by some kind of creature. I don't even know what that even is, y'all. Judgment in chains. He that led into captivity shall go into captivity. All praise to the Most High, y'all. What's up, Zion Dynasty? This is your favorite dreaded Israelite, the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. JV Zion. Y'all show me some love, show me some love. You already know what time it is. Y'all already know. And welcome to the Zion Dynasty family. Welcome back to the channel where your boy is back in the flesh.
About to hit y'all with another
banger. All glory, honor, dominion, power, majesty, world without end to the mighty one of Jacob, the holy one of Israel, the redeemer of the 12 tribes, and the very resurrector of the dry bones of Ezekiel, our loving father that ain't never forgot about his children, ain't never forsaken his bride, has not given up on the apple of his eye. All praises be to the Most High, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. And y'all, welcome back to the channel. First, I want to say peace, love, blessings, prosperity to the full, to the overflow, the abundance of peace, just the spirit of lions, the spirit of generals, to all my Israelite brothers and sisters, all my Israelite kings and queens. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Y'all mean everything to me. We taking over on this thing, y'all. Gang, gang.
gang on YouTube.
And all praises be to the Most High for all of y'all, for just the love, the support, just the community, the camaraderie. Y'all are the greatest. Not just y'all, but all of our sojourners with Zion, all those cleaving Gentiles to the house of Jacob.
Not those that's on here trolling though, cause I know y'all be here.
And all the urban apologists junkies.
Well, you know, Israel done away with, you know, whosoever will, let them come.
I love each and every one of y'all, and I say peace, love, blessings, prosperity to the full, to the overflow, to each and every one of you all. We could not do this work without y'all. Y'all are just awesome and amazing, and I thank the Most High y'all every day for each and every one of y'all. So y'all, your boy is back. We in this thing. We finna hit it, y'all. We're about to go in. We've been doing a lot of different topics lately, going into a lot of different connecting series and that kind of thing. It's just been awesome, y'all. Also, I know you guys are loving these type of series, like going through Get Out and that kind of thing. Y'all, I got a lot slated. We're also gonna do them. You know, I'm gonna touch that them series, y'all. If you have not seen them and you have Amazon Prime, that them series, I think Jordan Peele is the creator of that as well, but I'm not sure. But y'all, we're gonna be tackling all of that stuff. Anything having to do with our history as Israelites and these different subtle references that Esau and the nations place in their pop culture. I'm telling y'all, art imitates life. They hide a lot of these nuggets inside of these films, these movies, these series, what have you, and they drop nuggets that they know were Israel. They know we're the chosen people of the Most High Yah. They know that the earth was made for our sakes, and they covet that thing, and they drop that thing in these shows. So first, y'all, I'm gonna go through a couple of business items. The Sefer giveaway. We're gonna do a couple of those things because I love y'all. It's been so many heartfelt comments. I watch those things, y'all. And we've been looking at how many of y'all really would want that Sefer. We're gonna probably do like 2 or 3, and we might, and I'm just saying immediately, over time we're gonna keep doing them, you know, every so often. But on that original post, y'all comment, and if you can't find that original post, comment on the video about you wanting the Sefer. I just want to be able to go through each of the comments to look at the family and see, you know, you guys' response and your engagement and who would really want to be blessed with that tool. I'm telling y'all, the Sefer goes through hidden books they've taken out of our King James. It restores the 1611 King James that fills in the history of us being Israel. The Maccabean period that goes into our ancestors having to cross over to adopt the Greek or Greco-Roman customs and lifestyles. That's where you get the fraternities, sororities crossing over, all of that. These books were taken out. The book of Tobit that talks about preach him among us, O children of Israel, for the Most High has scattered us among these nations. A lot of these crucial precepts that are needed to put the puzzle pieces together to know that Bible, I'm telling y'all, oh my God, that Bible is the history, the heritage, the culture of one people, the African, Judean, Israelite people. And a lot of y'all been coming against me for Africa. Y'all gotta check out these more videos. Don't worry, I'm gonna revive that more series because I don't think a lot of the family that come against some of this stuff know history. The Afriat family, the Jewish Virtual Library, the Tel Aviv Jerusalem Library about the Sefer HaNamarav. These different texts go into the Afriat family. These Moroccan, Moorish, Ephrati, Israelite families from which the name Africa comes from. Understand, the word Africa, I'm gonna have to deal with it. The continent of Africa, that's not a Hamitic word. In antiquity, it was the land of Kham, or Khemit, or the land of Ham, or Akebulan. So where did Africa come from? Ka is a Roman suffix, so the Romans named it the people of Afra, or Afrati, or Afri. The people of Ka, Afri. Where did the Romans get that from? When they first tried to conquer the northern region of Africa, which was the most originally inhabited region of the continent, understand the Bantu expansion was an Israelite expansion. I got to deal with this history a little bit, y'all. The Bantu expansion was an Israelite expansion. The sub-Saharan Negro is a modern phenomenon. Science would tell y'all that. That's when we left out of Israel in 70 AD. Josephus talks about it. Dr. Windsor talks about it. And over 1 million went into Africa. So the word Africa is not Hamitic. The word Africa is Hebraic, and y'all heard it from your boy now. So when I say we're the African, Judean, Israelite people, that's consistent with Israel. When you know about the Ephraim family, when you know about Ephrati, when you know about the Moorish Israelites of Morocco, when you know the Sephardic Israelites of Spain and Iberia that were banished out of Spain, that went to North Africa, y'all got to know this history. So I bring that up to let you know that that Bible, oh my God, belongs to the children of Israel. And the nations know, and they drop these nuggets in these series. So we're gonna keep dealing with them. Is gonna be my next one. And in today's video, y'all, we're gonna deal with the Tuskegee Syphilis study, and we're gonna connect that with the last days of Ptolemy Gray. Ptolemy Gray. If y'all have not seen Samuel L. Jackson and Ptolemy Gray, I'm telling you, it's on Apple TV. It is an amazing series that drops so many nuggets about Esau being the devil the Bible speaks of, the so-called white man, being the devil the Bible speaks of, lying to our people and trying to deceive our people as an angel of light. Now we talked about Get Out, the whore of Babylon, that Armitage girl that came and got Chris, and she was running game on all these Negroes to take them to the Armitage family so that they could perform a procedure where they place a white man inside of the brains of black bodies. Y'all, art imitates life, right? So before I get off into that, the Sefer giveaway. Y'all comment on the video if you want one. Let your boy know so we can get a head count, so I can know that, okay, if it's 500, we need to probably up how many we're giving away, right? Just to bless y'all, because I'm telling you, the history, and Ptolemy is a Greek name that goes back to Alexander the Great and all of this history, right? About our ancestors crossing over. They took these books out because it helps understand.
Well, why if JB, if we Israel, then why we don't know that we Israel then? Why ain't we Africans?
A lot of that history comes over time. When our people slowly were deprived from our history, this was a process, y'all. So a lot of that history is in these hidden books in the Sefer. I'm gonna do some giveaways. We're gonna bless you guys with that. Y'all comment about that. Also, if you want to continue to support this work, y'all have been loving on us in a way that I am eternally and just grateful to you, each and every one of y'all. And I owe my life to just laying it down, researching, presenting this information, showing the revelation that the Most High is showing me. All of this research, all of this DNA, all of this archaeology, it's your birthright, Zion. We are the children of the Most High, y'all, and it's time for us to return back to our Creator, return back to our heritage, and unite as a people and establish the kingdom of the Most High. So we're gonna deal with it, y'all. But I just thank y'all for everything that y'all been doing, just allowing us to do this work. Me and Shawnee D, I couldn't even express it enough how much y'all mean to us. So if y'all want to support, I'm gonna put that Cash App up. Also, the P.O. Box is established. I'm gonna have that in the description. I had a couple of people saying that they didn't see it. Let us know in the comments if you don't see it. Also, a lot of y'all been emailing and messaging about the PayPal. I do have a PayPal now. We're transitioning that PayPal. We're in the process of doing it, but I do have one that you guys can use to be able to support the ministry. So if you don't have a Cash App or don't feel comfortable with Cash App, there's also a PayPal option, the P.O. Box option, and I'm just trying to make sure the Sefer, y'all comment about that. So y'all, without further ado, we're about to deal with it, y'all. So as you guys know, this is the channel where we deal with receipts. I'm telling y'all, everything that I present before you all, I try to corroborate that with as many sources and credible scholars as I can, right? This channel, we deal with Israelite history in detail. And when I say Israelite history, I mean African, Moorish, anything under the umbrella of our identity and our sojourn. I got to tell y'all this now. Anything dealing with issues of civil rights or our Black Wall Street, y'all check that video out. And our ancient Israelite history, of course, Limba tribe and that kind of thing. But in this video, now we already talked about the Willie Lynch letter, we talked about COINTELPRO. This is that channel where we deal with how the Most High Yah, our Father, has been dealing with us as a people. You have to know your history. If you do not know where you come from, you can never know where you're going. A people without knowledge of their history and identity is like a tree without roots. You can only grow but to a certain extent if you don't know who you are. I am because we are. Ubuntu. You give back to the thing that gave you life is the purest form of worship for the Creator. Understand? But our people have been told,
oh yeah, you know that stuff don't matter. You know, Christ, you know, he died for everybody. You know, agree. Okay, so what we Israelite people? So what we the nation of Israel? You know, Israel done away with.
The white man, the mark of the beast, the Edomite, American, Rothschild mindset is a Negro creation. They have created us with this mindset of the Matrix where we think that our history doesn't matter. When every other people have a culture, every other people have an identity, right? So we're gonna deal with that history on this channel. And we're gonna look at one of the darkest periods in our Israelite sojourn in Babylon, and that's with the Tuskegee Syphilis study. I'm gonna connect this with the mark of the beast. Now, a lot of y'all have, and I'm gonna deal with some concerns. A lot of y'all say,
well, JB, ain't the mark of the beast like a physical thing? Like a physical...
Understand, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. It starts in the mind, right? It starts with you seeing a white Jesus. I got to tell y'all that the Roman Council of Nicene construct of Christianity implanted in our brains causes us to trust Europeans, trust white folks as this angel of light, and then he starts slipping stuff in your vaccines. Y'all got to hear what I'm saying. And then he starts putting stuff in your food. And then you become so dependent on America that you just do whatever they tell you to do. You take anything. If they say that it's a COVID max vaccine mandate, I got to deal with it. Then you do it. But it started in your mind. That's why the scriptures we read in Revelation 7. We looked at Revelation 14. Both of these talking about the 144, that they were sealed in their minds. The Bible is expressed that they were sealed in their foreheads. What is this talking about? With the name of the Father, the way of the Most High Yah, the customs, the laws, the Torah, our culture, our African, Hebraic, Judaistic lifestyle, where we don't trust Babylon. We just praying for deliverance. We praying for their smoke. Let's go. We praying that the Most High Yah executes vengeance on these nations for what they've done. So we don't trust America. We don't trust their GMO. We don't trust the foods. That's why the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread teaches you to look at ingredients. I'm telling y'all, the faithfulness of Yah. His commandments guard his people. I know a lot of y'all like,
well, JB, you talking about fringes and commandments, you know, all that's done away with.
You gonna worship somebody, and we talked about that in detail, y'all. You're gonna serve somebody, why not the Most High? You're gonna keep a holiday, you're gonna keep Easter, you're gonna do all that stuff. Why not keep the holy days? So you're gonna serve somebody.
Right, oh, that's legalism.
Well, you're gonna pay your tithes, Negro. So you gonna, you know what I'm saying? It's hypocrisy. It's Satan thinking that, making you think that you're free, when in actuality, you will have a master. Why not your Father that loves you, that showed you that bacon was unclean in the scriptures ahead of time, before science had to say,
okay, well, we know that, you know, the pig is unclean, he has perspiration on the inside, and, you know, if you eat that, that is, you know, hypertension prone and cardiovascular disease prone and that kind of thing.
So before science came and had to say it, the Most High was ahead of that thing. Understand, Moshe Hanavi wrote these scriptures thousands of years ago. Let's go. All praises to the Most High Yah. So now we're gonna look at this Tuskegee Syphilis study, y'all. First, I'm gonna show you a clip that kind of gives you an overall breakdown of what happened. Because I love history. I need my people to know how Babylon gets down. If you don't know your enemy, if you don't know your history, you are sitting duck. So we're going to look at the Tuskegee Syphilis study and see how Satan beguiled our people, made our people think that they was going to come bring us some miracle drug, and they saw these white doctors. It was like, man, who are these people? And they was coming to destroy them. Just like them white folks that came to Africa, our forefathers was like, whoa, who are these people? And they were coming to send us into captivity. So y'all, we're gonna look at this Tuskegee Syphilis study breakdown, and then we're gonna come back to it. So let's go.
In the 1930s, the United States was ravaged by syphilis. This sexually transmitted infection afflicted nearly 1 in 10 Americans, producing painful sores and rashes that persisted for roughly 2 years. After these initial symptoms, late-stage syphilis was known to cause organ damage, heart and brain disorders, and even blindness. It was incredibly difficult to slow the disease's spread. Experts cautioned against unprotected sex, but the infection could also be passed during childbirth. Worse still, existing treatments like mercury and bismuth were considered unreliable at best and potentially harmful at worst. Today, these heavy metals are classified as toxic, but at the time, doctors were still uncovering their dangerous side effects. Amidst the uncertainty, healthcare professionals had 2 key questions. Did late-stage syphilis warrant the risks of existing treatments? And did the infected individual's race change how the disease progressed? Many physicians were convinced syphilis affected the neurological systems of white patients and the cardiovascular systems of black patients. There was little evidence for this theory, but the U.S. Public Health Service was determined to investigate further. In 1932, they launched a massive experiment in Tuskegee, Alabama. The town had already possessed a small hospital, and the area was home to a large population of potential participants. The PHS collaborated with local doctors and nurses to recruit roughly 400 black men, presumed to have non-contagious late-stage syphilis, as well as 200 non-syphilitic black men for their control group. But their recruitment plan centered on a lie. While the researchers planned to observe how syphilis would progress with minimal treatment, participants were told they would receive free drugs and care for their condition. At first, researchers gave the men existing treatments, but these were soon replaced with placebos. Under the false pretense of providing a special remedy, researchers performed painful and invasive spinal taps to investigate the disease's neurological consequences. When patients died, the PHS would swoop in to study the body by funding funerals in exchange for autopsies. In their published studies, they listed the men as volunteers to obscure the circumstances under which they'd been recruited. Outside Alabama, syphilis treatment was advancing. A decade after the study began, clinical trials confirmed that penicillin effectively cured the disease in its early stages. But in Tuskegee, researchers were determined to keep pursuing what they considered vital research. They had yet to confirm their theories about racial difference, and they believed they would never have another opportunity to observe the long-term effects of untreated syphilis. The study's leadership decided to withhold knowledge of new treatments from their subjects. During World War II, researchers convinced the local draft board to exempt men from their study, preventing them from enlisting and potentially accessing penicillin. The study even continued through the 1950s, when penicillin was shown to help manage late-stage syphilis. By today's bioethical standards, withholding treatment in a research study without a patient's informed consent is morally abhorrent. But for a large part of the 20th century, this practice was not uncommon. In the 1940s, U.S.-led studies in Guatemala infected numerous prisoners, sex workers, soldiers, and mental health patients with sexually transmitted infections to study potential treatments. And other studies throughout the 50s and 60s saw doctors secretly infecting patients with viral hepatitis and even cancer cells. Eventually, researchers began objecting to these unjust experiments. In the late 1960s, an STI contact tracer named Peter Buxton convinced the PHS to consider ending the study. But after leadership decided against it, Buxton sent his concerns to the press. In July of 1972, an expose of the Tuskegee study made headlines across the country. Following public outcry, a federal investigation, and a lawsuit, the study was finally shut down in 1972, 40 years after it began, and 30 after a treatment for syphilis had been found. No evidence of any racial difference was discovered. When the study ended, only 74 of the original 600 men were alive. 40 of their wives and 19 of their children had contracted syphilis, presumably from their husbands and fathers. In the wake of this tragedy and concerns about similar experiments, Congress passed new regulations for ethical research and informed consent. But systemic racism continues to permeate medical care and research throughout the U.S. To truly address these issues, the need for structural change, better access to care, and transparency in research remains urgent.
Man, when I tell y'all the Most High Yah is gonna bust Esau upside the head. When I tell y'all the judgment that's gonna come, y'all got to understand. When the Most High gets through judging America, that smoke gonna rise up for eternity for the wickedness that they've done to y'all's people. You see, even if black folks are...
Well, I don't care about that no more. That stuff don't matter.
Even if we forget, even if white folks forget, even if the nations forget, the Most High said, I ain't gonna forget. I'm not gonna forget the Willie Lynch. I'm not gonna forget the alligator bait. I'm not gonna forget the lynches. I'm not gonna forget any of this stuff that y'all might choose to forget. The Most High says, I'm gonna remember that. When we look at this Tuskegee syphilis study, y'all, the things that they have done, how deceptive it was. So it began in 1932 and didn't end to 1972. This is not something in the 1800s or the 1700s. White folks just did this, y'all. Understand. This just happened within, what, 50 years? Where they conducted this experiment. They didn't even tell our ancestors what was going on. They thinking, because a lot of our ancestors, y'all saw in the clip, were sharecroppers. They were kind of from a poor Alabama area. Shout out to Bama. You know, I'm right here. So this is hometown history, right? So they didn't know what was going on. All the doctors told them was that they had bad blood. So they're thinking that the doctors are treating them. No, the doctors are giving them the bad blood and just watching them die. Because we see that 10 years after the study began in 1942 that they actually came up with penicillin to be able to combat syphilis. But instead of curing them or giving them the penicillin or even telling them that it existed, they watched them decay. They watched them pass it to their spouses. They watched them pass syphilis to their children, y'all, and they watched them die from this. It was a study that started with 600 people and only 74 remained. I got to tell y'all, let's go into these precepts. Now, we saw that all of this stuff, the reason I go through all of our sojourn, all of our history, is because all of this gives you a picture of who we are. Because every ounce of what we've gone through, Zion, is a part of the curses. I got to tell y'all, the Most High said this would happen to my people. If you forgot who you are, if you lost your heritage, if you lost your history, if you didn't guard that thing. So Israelite family, when y'all throw grace out, you have to treat that thing with the utmost care. Because the very reason we went into slavery, went into captivity, is because we didn't care about our heritage. So when you say,
oh, well, them fringes don't matter, JB, and your beard and your pork.
That's the same spirit that got us on those slave cargo ships. And that's why we're going through what we're going through. And that's why the Tuskegee Syphilis study happened. All of this are products, are symptoms of the overall disease of the curses of Deuteronomy 28, which is a spiritual wound that our Father inflicted us with because he had to take his belt off and whoop us because we didn't love who we were. I'm just gonna tell you, y'all think of the laws and the commandments as a checklist of do's and don'ts. It's your culture. The African Israelite Eastern way, I am because we are. Giving back to the land, knowing thyself, not touching the unclean things that the Most High told you, honoring the Sabbath, honoring Pesach and the Passover and the different high holy days. This was our lifestyle. And because we love the lifestyle of these Greeks and these Europeans, the Most High said, I'm gonna allow them to take you into slavery. Since you love them so much, they gonna take your history and they gonna create a Negro project. That's where the word project come from. When you talk about the projects, that's a creation. The Negro in America, y'all, is a creation that they've created. So the Tuskegee Syphilis study was the Most High allowing our enemies to wreak havoc in deception. They deceived us, told us they was coming to heal us, appeared like an angel of light. And I'm gonna drop a nugget for y'all. Now let's deal with this. So first, the Bible tells us in Deuteronomy 28:48 that you shall serve your enemy in want of all things. The Most High said, you love Babylon so much, they're going to take you into slavery and you're going to have to seek them for every need. For the clothes you got on, you ain't going to have no manufacturing companies. For the water you drink, you don't own Dasani. For the food that you eat, you don't own the produce stores. Understand what I'm saying? In want of everything, you're going to have to serve your enemies. But it's deeper than that. Your history that your baby's gonna learn, they're gonna be taught by their enemies in their educational systems, in the school systems. They're gonna teach them their history. So we have to learn about who we are from Babylon. That's why the scriptures, I'm telling y'all, is our ultimate authority. Not what Esau talking about, not even the science. I know we talk about DNA and archaeology on the channel, but Esau is deceptive. He can get in there and twist it and change it. Our ultimate authority is our heritage that has endured the test of time, which is the scriptures. And our Father's like, that's what I wanted them to do the whole time. If you had just guarded your history, known who you were, these things wouldn't happen. So they lied to the candidates. They told them that, well, this is just us treating you. All of this care that you're getting is free health care. We're coming, doing these tests, when they were injecting them with the virus and just monitoring the progression of the death, because they thought that we were somehow inferior to them, which they really didn't. That's what they're saying in the documentary. They knew who we were, but they were using that just to inflict torment and be able to watch population control, watch our people die. I'm just gonna tell y'all, all right? So now I'm gonna show y'all another clip where this brother breaks it down even further and shows you guys that this is a long systemic process of the healthcare industry being set up to target our people. Understand? So when you talk about the COVID vaccine, see, that's why they keep pushing it and saying, well, y'all need to get this vaccine. They know that we're already skeptical to Babylon. That's sealing you in your brain. I'm telling y'all, the Most High protect his people when you don't trust your enemies, because we talked about Deuteronomy 28:48 saying that you will serve your enemies in want of all things. I'm gonna give y'all another nugget. In Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, the book that they took out of the Bible, that was in the original 1611 King James. In Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12, verse 10, it says, trust not thine enemy. Word for word. So we see that the eagle that came as swift, or the nation that came as swift as the eagle flies into Africa, the Bible tells us in that same chapter of Deuteronomy 28 that there are enemies. Sirach says, trust not your enemies. So America, the Bible is telling you, when you trust in oppression, when you trust in America and their healthcare system and all this stuff, that's the mark of the beast. That's that white image of Jesus in your brain that has you trust in your adversary, and that's how they deceive you. We think, now I had to deal with this nugget before I show y'all the other clip. We think that there was an actual serpent in the Garden of Eden. We're gonna deal with this. It was not a physical serpent. I'm gonna tell y'all, it was not a snake, it was not a dragon, it was not some kind of animal creature. The Bible calls the being that showed up to Eve in the garden as a serpent. But why then, when the Most High cursed this serpent, he said, you're going to crawl on your belly? If it was a snake already, it already crawls on his belly. No, this was a metaphor that the Most High told to this being, which we see in Corinthians, Paul exposes was Lucifer, that appeared as an angel of light. I'm going to put it on screen. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, Paul says that I have godly jealousy for you, right? He's talking to the church of Corinth. So Paul is saying, I have godly jealousy for you, that you be not deceived or beguiled as Eve was by the serpent. Now, when we scroll down in that same chapter, it says that Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Now, we see in Revelation this going into in more detail. We see in Revelation chapter 20, beginning at verse 1, that it says, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. We know, family, that this is a physical indictment against a specific people. In Revelation 13:10, it says, he that led into captivity shall go into captivity. This is in the same book. So then you go to chapter 20, and it says that Satan is led in chains. What is going on? Now, we didn't talk about this. Y'all seen it from the intro. This is talking about the Edomite people. The so-called white race is the synagogue, the tabernacle that has been prepared from the foundation of the earth as a lineage, the same way as we're the chosen race of the Most High Yah. Satan said, I got one better. Give me a lineage. Give me a time period, oh Yah, and I'll wreak a havoc that this world ain't never seen. And the Most High said, I'll give you a head start. Go ahead. So the Most High is playing chess against this angelic being that has prepared a tabernacle. This same Satan, this same synagogue of Satan, is the spirit that guards the Garden of Eden to keep Yah's people from returning. That anointed cherub. Now, we didn't went into detail on that. So we see that this people are our enemy, that they have deceived us, and that we will have to trust in them in captivity in one of all things. But the Bible says, don't trust them, my children. But because of the curses, because the Most High had to take his belt off, we ended up having to trust these nations, y'all. That's why I tell y'all, we got to come together as a people. We need to detach from the mark of the beast. We need to get out in the spirit of our minds. We need to flee Babylon in our spirits and detox from trusting in white Jesus. I'm trying to tell y'all. And because we have this hang up, this matrix in our minds, it keeps us under the curses. But when we detach from the nations and be ye holy, for I am holy, and you trust in Yah, you trust in the Torah, you trust in the culture of your forefathers, you trust in your people and the stock of your people, you come together. Oh, how good and pleasant it is for the children of the Most High Yah to dwell together in unity. When we come together under our culture, under our history, under our heritage, then we can detach from Babylon. We don't need America, and we can start thinking about Zion and Africa. I'm trying to tell y'all. So we see that this enemy has deceived y'all's people. Now I'm going to show y'all another clip where this brother is breaking it down in even more detail. Y'all hang tight. Let's check it out.
I want you to imagine that you're in the shoes of this person. You're being offered free medical treatment by a team of doctors that work for the U.S. government. And for context, there aren't really a lot of doctors that live near you. And these doctors from the government seem like people you can trust. Plus, it's free. So it seems like a really great opportunity to get health care when you might not otherwise have access to it. But what if when you went to see this team of doctors, people who you trusted, you were actually, without your knowledge, made to be part of an experiment? And what if, as part of that experiment, you had medication purposefully withheld from you? Medication that could have saved your life, but because it was kept from you, it led to years-long debilitating illness and even the possibility of death for you, your friends, and your family. I mean, it sounds like a horror movie, but it wasn't. This was very real, and it happened to very real people. Today, we're talking about the Tuskegee Syphilis Study. Let's start the show. First, a note on terminology. While the study is famously called the Tuskegee Syphilis Study or Experiment, some scholars disagree with that name. The people of Tuskegee, they believe, are not to blame for what happened. And some argue that the framing of it being named the Tuskegee Experiment implicitly places the blame and burden on that community, rather than the government. Racism, discrimination, and prejudice have long been part of the way we practice medicine in the United States. This isn't new. In fact, it started in the earliest days of slavery. Enslaved Black Americans were rarely treated humanely by physicians in the antebellum South. Oftentimes, they were only examined when their ability to bear children or to work was in question. And many physicians experimented with new medical treatments on enslaved Black Americans without their consent. Entire fields of study, like the field of gynecology, were built on the backs of Black Americans being exploited and experimented on by the medical system. Many physicians and scientists of this era falsely believed, sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously, that Black people are biologically distinct or even inferior to white people. For example, physicians and scientists in the United States incorrectly believe that syphilis, a contagious sexually transmitted disease that can also make the sexual partners of the infected individual and their children sick, affected those of European descent and African descent differently. What's more, many physicians and scientists thought that white Americans had more developed brains than Black Americans. And so even though it was apparent that white Americans could develop syphilis, it was believed that they would suffer more neurological symptoms as the disease progressed. These same physicians and scientists believed that Black Americans had less developed brains and were ruled by more basic organ functions. So, they posited that Black people would suffer more cardiovascular complications rather than neurological. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study gave researchers and physicians the opportunity to test these deeply troubling, medically dubious, and just plain old racist theories. So in 1932, 600 African-American men from Macon County, Alabama, were recruited to participate in this experiment conducted by the Public Health Service. 399 of the men were already diagnosed with syphilis, and 201 were not. So the goal of the study, essentially, was to see what happens to Black people when you don't treat syphilis. At the time the study started, penicillin wouldn't be a confirmed treatment for syphilis for over a decade. But there were still recommended treatments for the disease that were withheld, and penicillin would eventually be withheld too. The word unethical doesn't even begin to cover how abhorrent this was. The researchers did not test the alternative theory that white people had worse neurological symptoms than Black Americans, or even have any white participants in this study at all. In addition to their theories, they based their justification for the study on another study done on all white subjects called the Oslo Study of Untreated Syphilis. But when this study was published, it strongly advocated for treating the subject of syphilis and warned against doing otherwise. Regardless, the researchers proceeded with the study and chose the Tuskegee Institute as the place where they would base their project. Many of the subjects were poor and uneducated sharecroppers who lived throughout rural Alabama. Many of them had never seen a doctor before, nor had they received any traditional medical care. But in this context, it might have felt to them like they were getting an extraordinary amount of treatment. The participants had to have a lot of blood tests, x-rays, and spinal taps, and a lot of tests to see how the disease impacted the population. For participating in the study, the men were offered medical care and burial insurance. And since Black Americans were hit really hard by the Great Depression, these types of incentives were extremely compelling. The Black unemployment rate in the South at that time was around 50%, and many of these men needed benefits for themselves and their families. They were also given rides to and from the study meals on the day that they were present, and free treatment for minor illnesses and ailments. Even though the study was set up like a traditional research study with control groups and experimental groups, the subjects were never actually told that they were part of a study at all. While the men did agree to be examined and treated by the doctors, they weren't told that they were being experimented on. Essentially, the researchers never received a really important thing called informed consent. Informed consent is when a researcher tells a research subject about the study they're participating in, the risk involved, and gives them the option of whether to participate or not. Informed consent is important because it acknowledges that the participant has the agency to make their own decision for their own body. What the men were told was that they were receiving treatment for something called bad blood, a local term used to describe a number of different illnesses that resembled anemia and fatigue. What's even worse is that even the broader Black community in rural Alabama had been misled about what the public health service was doing. Many of these men were recruited by Black doctors, local pastors, teachers, and community leaders, demonstrating that many people thought that the men could benefit from joining. This is an important point because the study members of the Tuskegee community were led to believe that this was a special government program that would be worthwhile for themselves and the whole community. A Black nurse named Eunice Rivers, who's a very controversial figure in this incident, helps demonstrate how complicated this all was. She was one of the first Black American women to work for the United States Public Health Service, and she helped recruit the 600 men into the study. Today, many scholars wrestle with whether or not she was complicit in what took place, or if she was a victim who had been misled herself. Even after penicillin was discovered as a cure for the disease and became a standard of care in the 1940s, most of the men were not offered treatment by the study. The United States Public Health Service researchers withheld medication and critical information about it from their subject. As a result, many of the men died, went blind, or experienced severe mental health issues due to the untreated syphilis ravaging their bodies. And many of their wives and children caught syphilis as well. Eventually, a United States Public Health Service venereal disease investigator named Peter Buxton started to ask questions about why the study was happening and whether it was ethical. He leaked the information to the press in 1972, and the resulting story prompted so much national outrage that the decades-long study was finally shut down. In the summer of 1973, an attorney named Fred Gray and the NAACP filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of the individuals who participated in the study and their families. They ended up settling for more than $9 million for the study participants. The U.S. government also promised to give the surviving victims free medical service and burial services as a form of compensation through the Tuskegee Health Benefit Program, which provided medical care for the study's survivors. And in 1975, the wives, widows, and children of the participants were added to the program as well. An important outgrowth of this infamous study is the National Research Act, which was signed into law in 1974. This act was a critical force in protecting the rights of study participants and shaping research ethics in the United States. It created the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research, which identified basic principles of research and ways to ensure that those principles were followed. The Commission's recommendations required researchers to always get informed consent from all of their study participants. In 1996, the Tuskegee Syphilis Study Legacy Committee was organized to develop a strategy to address the emotional damages of the study, to hold the federal government accountable for more ethical research practices, and to persuade the federal government to publicly acknowledge their role in harming this community of Black Americans. And in 1997, President Bill Clinton apologized publicly, stating, "It is not only in remembering that shameful past that we can make amends and repair our nation, but it is in remembering that past that we can build a better present and a better future. The United States government did something that was wrong, deeply, profoundly, morally wrong." We also want to emphasize that this is recent history. This didn't happen in like the 1700s or 1800s. This study ended in 1972. And this experiment is also one of the reasons why some Black Americans are skeptical of doctors and researchers. Many still carry the memory of this deception deep in their bones. Today, many research studies in the United States still have few, if any, Black Americans in their experiments. This is important to note because non-diverse studies are not as effective and can lead to medical mistakes in the future. Part of this is tied to the fear that Black people have about how they might be treated in these studies. But another part of it is that sometimes researchers don't adequately reach out to these communities. And one more thing. While the Tuskegee experiment absolutely does have repercussions that continue to be felt today, it is not necessarily the all-encompassing cause for all inequality in the medical system. What it is a microcosm of a larger historical trauma. And it is one of many factors, both historical and contemporary, that contribute to inequality in healthcare. This is worth saying explicitly because by putting an outsized portion of the blame on a single historical event, people can put less blame on the current systems and structures that contribute to racism and discrimination in the medical community today. As USC sociologist Karen Lincoln told NPR in 2021, if you say Tuskegee, then you don't have to acknowledge things like pharmacy deserts, things like poverty and unemployment. You can just say, that happened then, and there's nothing we can do about it. Sometimes, racism in the medical and scientific community is not always as clear and blatant as it was in Tuskegee. Sometimes, it's more subtle and less easy to identify. But that doesn't mean it isn't there. And it's only by naming these things directly that we will be able to build a scientific and medical system that serves everyone in our country with justice and compassion.
It's so much that brother dropped, y'all. It's unreal. Now we see that this brother lets us know that this is just a drop in the pond of a systemic, y'all gotta catch that part, of a systemic healthcare crisis that comes against our people, that doesn't understand our community, that has targeted and done multiple studies, not just the Tuskegee syphilis study. This was just the one that took the hit. I'm trying to tell y'all, this is just a study that had to be the fall guy. But they've been doing this stuff for a long time. That's why I tell y'all, we have to invest in our own health care. We have to eat the foods that the Most High told us to eat. That's the purpose of our culture. There's certain foods that our people are not meant to have. You don't pit 87 in a V8 Corvette. Understand what I'm saying? You have to put into the God vessel of this earth, our people, clean foods, right? You can't be eating pork chop and sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits. I'm trying to tell y'all. So there's a disparity in the healthcare system because it really wasn't designed for our people, but it was the belt that the Most High used to whoop us, and now we have to detach from trusting that system. Now, family, we're gonna look at PTOLEMY GREY. PTOLEMY GREY is a 2022 rendition that plays off of this entire concept of the nations being a satanic people, white folks in America, doing treachery to be able to give our people vaccines and stuff that ain't for us, be able to act like they trying to treat us, and they really making things worse. PTOLEMY GREY, if y'all check that out on Apple TV, he goes into detail. The series goes into detail on this entire thing. So first I want to show y'all a clip that goes into our Maccabean Greco-Roman history of when we were crossed over into the Greek lifestyle. Now Ptolemy, the name Ptolemy is Greek. Understand, people think it's African because Ptolemy was over the African jurisdiction that Alexander the Great dispensed to his 4 generals after he died. Now y'all gotta read the book of Maccabees for that. But basically, on Alexander the Great's deathbed, he divided up his empire into generals. Ptolemy was given jurisdiction over Africa. Chiefly in Carthage was the seat of his authority. Now, he was also the pharaoh or king in his dynasty of Egypt. So when you look at Cleopatra, Cleopatra was not black. I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all now. These were the Greeks that clothed themselves in the African continent because they had power over Africa because of Alexander the Great. There's so many layers to that. This piggybacks Get Out, because Get Out is white people that cloak themselves with black history and black people. Understand? So we see that Ptolemy is a shout out to Get Out about white people taking over the continent, because Ptolemy was over that region. So it's almost, you got to kind of look deep into that thing. So the name itself does hint at this. And then his last name, Gray, shows you the middle ground between this black and white issue. That it's not clear cut. It's really a white people hiding behind our history, and it's a duality that's going on. So I'm gonna show y'all that clip where he goes into the history of Ptolemy, his name. Let's check that out.
Cynthia Howard.
Ptolemy Gray. A lot of folk think that's an African name, but really it's Greek.
Oh, you got family from there?
My mama loved history, so when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt 300 years before Jesus was born, the governors became kings, pharaohs, and 3 of them was named Ptolemy. One of them was Cleopatra's daddy. So not only was he Greek, he was the king of Egypt.
Tell me something, Ptolemy. You ever...
Now, family, I gotta show y'all now. Now, this clip I'm finna show y'all right here is the creme de la creme. It goes into, now keep in mind, we showed you the Tuskegee Syphilis study that went into, I told y'all, trust not your enemy. Sirach chapter 12 verse 10, or Ecclesiasticus. It's the same book. You might see Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. It says, trust not your enemy. That the curse of Deuteronomy was that we would have to serve our enemy for the clothes we wore, the health care, the food. All of these things was not the Most High's heartbeat for his people, but a byproduct of the curses. Now, Ptolemy is getting ready to have a conversation with the doctor that promises to give him a medicine where he can get his memory back. Because in the series, Ptolemy suffers from this dementia that's aggressive. He's forgetting everything, but he has an inheritance that his uncle left him to be able to better his people. Y'all, this stuff is legend. But he doesn't know who he is, and he can't remember that history, that heritage, that inheritance that his uncle gave him because of the dementia. So this doctor comes and says, I have a cure for that. This is why I tell y'all, we can't trust these folks, right? And a lot of y'all will say, well, y'all be talking about DNA and stuff. Understand, we do not use that as the ultimate authority. The Bible is our history book. The Bible is the foundation by which we stand. Because white folks are trying to creep in like serpents and hijack a movement. Y'all got to hear what I'm saying? So we're going to see Ptolemy have this conversation with the doctor, and he confronts that doctor. He says, you're Satan. Now, I'm just going to play it. We're going to check it out.
Would you like me to read it to you?
I can read, Satan. Says here you want ownership of my body.
That's the basic agreement, yes.
But not my soul.
I have no use for a soul, Mr. Gray.
Good, because I'm going to need mine. How come it don't bother you when I call you Satan?
There's a lot of money behind this research. Individual trusts, big pharma, plenty of wealth and privilege. I assume that you're just calling it like you see it.
Also says here I get $5,000 just for signing.
Yes, I could probably bump that up.
No, Beazle, no. I'm sure your money bought plenty of black souls and bodies, but I ain't selling. Me and you, we just trading favors. And I need this here contract to say that.
It makes you feel better?
And that ain't all. Now you say when I get this here next shot, that's gonna bring all my memories back.
Yes.
But that's when I sign.
Mr. Gray, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that. I need a signed release before I give you the last dose.
Listen here. I got a lot of things to do.
Now, family, the deception of trusting in Babylon. That's when we say get out. Y'all check that get out video out. We have to detox from Babylon here and prepare Zion. to go back to the land of Africa. That's what we have to think like, family. And a lot of y'all, I know y'all's talking about what the Most High, you know, is going to do it, the chariots. Understand, this is all true. But we talked about Joshua and how if the Most High requires faith, we have to be prepared in our minds to show ourselves faithful. A father is pleased by our faith, by us saying, Daddy, we're going to do it by any means necessary. We know that you're going to fight for us. When we see Elisha and his armor bearer, Elisha says, come on, we got to fight. And the general's scared. He said, look at all these armies around us. He said, Father, open up his eyes. Oh my God. Show him that there's more that's fighting for us than those that are fighting against us. But it's not for us to look up to heaven. Moses looked up to heaven like, Father, what we gonna do? He said, what you got in your hand? Let's go. That's why our people have to come together, pull our resources, think like a nation, stop thinking like babes and think like sons of Zion instead of just the children of Israel. Y'all gotta hear me now, because a son takes ownership. See, you say, oh, I got to deal with this, y'all. We see that Noah was called righteous because he followed after the Most High Yah. But we see that the Bible says that Abraham was a friend of God who walked before the Lord. Now, when you look at positioning, it's one thing as a child to follow after your father. But it's another thing as a son to know that my father got my back. Oh my goodness. And that's what the Most High wants us to think like in captivity. He wants us to stop thinking like slaves and think like a nation, and stop thinking about the Red Sea before you and think that the Most High gonna prepare that. He gonna part that thing. He told Joshua to keep on walking, and everything that stands in your way, you will see that I will move it from before you. That's what the Most High wants us to do, because we see with Ptolemy Gray that when he trusts this doctor, that in actuality, it aggressively makes his dementia worse, accelerating his death to the tomb. And I'm gonna show y'all that clip.
Betty, get up. Come on now, sleepyhead. Come on now, we ain't got all night.
Cordell?
Of course it's me. Now be quiet. Let's go.
What you doing here?
Getting you, that's what I'm doing here.
No. My man ain't supposed to be back here no more. I'm cured.
Now you stop talking that foolishness and let's go.
No, Cordell, my man ain't like this no more. I took the devil's poison, and now I remember the past instead of it remember me.
So you remember it all?
Yeah.
Then what was it I tasked you to do?
Family, I'm telling y'all, this stuff is legend. If y'all gotta pay attention to the Tuskegee Syphilis Study. Y'all gotta pay attention to Ptolemy Gray, which is a 2022. I love what they're doing because it resurfaces that conversation that our people need to have about trusting in the system as constructed. Now, we know as Israelites that we have to think self-sufficient, trusting in the Most High Yah, trusting in the laws, statutes, and commandments, our culture, our heritage. I don't even like saying laws because y'all think legalistic. We need to trust in our culture and return back to the spirit of that in our minds and detach from Babylon, think like a nation, come together and trust our own people and trust in the promised land that the Most High has promised us as a people and getting back to Zion. So family, I hope y'all enjoyed this. We got a lot more series like this planned. If y'all have any other ideas, topics, things you've seen in news and that kind of thing that you want us to deal with, y'all drop that in the comments. Also, you want that cipher, y'all comment that as well. If you want to support that, Cash App, P.O. Box, PayPal, all of that as well. I love you guys. We could not do this work without y'all. Peace, love, blessings, prosperity, abundance, health, wellness, the spirit of boldness on each and every one of my Israelite brothers and sisters. I love you all with the love of the Messiah. Shalom. All praises.